It's Ed here. Welcome to another episode in our startup series featuring myBenefits.ai. And you may recall that in episode 1, we had the CEO and founder, Priyam, just talking about what is myBenefits AI and what problem were they trying to solve. In episode 2, we talked about the pivot to pilot. So when you're a founder, you start up with this great idea, this great vision, but reality sinks in. And so with Priyam and his team, they had to make a pivot in order to get to pilot, which they did successfully. Because in episode 3, we followed Priyam. He went to India and received a major client, maybe a second major client, as well as the clients we already have here in the United States, like Cypress Point Surgical Hospital, which we'll talk about in a second. And so the 4th episode, we had Drexel and Dexel, and he's the CTO, and he talked about the magic of the tech and the AI that's used in myBenefits.ai. But in this episode, we want to talk about perhaps something even more important than all of that, and that's the clinician perspective, because at the end of the day, it's about the patient and it's about the clinician. So I want to welcome one of my advisory board peers, Dr. Walvekar. So I messed up the last name. Tell us the last name.
It's Walvekar.
Yeah, but we're good calling you Rohit. So
Rohan, absolutely.
Yeah, Rohan. Yes. So thanks, Rohan, for being on our show.
Thank you for having me, Ed. Excited to talk a little bit about myBenefits.
Yeah, and tell us, I know you're a head and neck surgeon. Tell us a little bit about you and your practice, and then we'll jump in and talk about myBenefits.
Sure. I'm in academic medicine, so I practice at Louisiana State University Health Sciences Center in New Orleans. I'm an ENT surgeon by training, and I specialize in surgeries related to cancers of the throat. I have a subspecialty interest in salivary gland disease and also in thyroid. So I do a lot of work with really cool technology. So using tiny little scopes to manage salivary stones and strictures. A lot of my patients, when they actually see me, they think that they're very unique in the fact that they've had this problem because it's so rare. But we actually see a ton of patients who have these kinds of issues. So yeah, I mean, I'm mostly just clinical, but I also have a pretty significant research background in clinical research and innovation. So I serve as the co-director of the Medical Innovation Design Studio at LSU. And that's kind of has been my sort of passion and about like seeking out technologies that can improve healthcare, beyond what I can do as a surgeon. I can obviously, I feel very grateful to be able to take care of the patients who I'm able to take care of. But healthcare technology has this attraction of being able to influence thousands of patients, and that's how I partnered with, rather I was involved with myBenefits because it's such a great technology in terms of what it can do for patients.
Yeah, and it's great having clinicians like you involved, because not only are you a practicing clinician and taking care of patients, but you also have great interest and great experience on the tech side. And so you kind of meld the two together and bring that whole sort of experience mindset in order to help develop and formulate and perfect these type of products. So it's really great having you on the advisory team alongside of me as we go to market. In fact, there was a major announcement today, a press release. So we're recording in late January of what's gone on at Cypress Point, which we've mentioned that before, surgical hospital, and the great success that's happened with the pilot there, which you are, part of the whole ecosystem around there. So I would love just to spend a minute on your perspective of myBenefits, from a clinical point of view. What attracted you to myBenefits?
Yeah, so I think interestingly, I'm also have a slight tech background. I'm a tech founder and my own startup company, and so I do understand some aspects of tech, from a more practical perspective and also obviously from a clinical perspective. But You mentioned pivot, and when we talked about my benefits, and when we pivoted to trying to create a solution for patients in their post-operative period, that immediately sort of got my attention, because from a surgical experience perspective, what the patients experience, what the part of it is like getting into the preparing yourself for surgery, but one of the most important aspects is the recovery phase, because that really kind of defines what your overall experience is going to be. You know, um, and again, I don't take this at face value, but this is just kind of a running joke that when we talk about surgery, we say that, like, it doesn't matter what you do inside, that just matters what the scar looks like. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, that's not true, obviously, but what I mean to say, when you think about the entire experience, surgical experience, from starting as a patient to being in somebody who's recovered from the surgery, that portion is extremely important. And I think that's where, my benefits with this platform that's been so successful at Cypress Point, Discharge Plus, um, really sort of empowers the patient in being able to interact with their discharge papers or their discharge summary in a way that I have never seen being
Yeah.
done before. So that's kind of cool about it,
Yeah,
And
and it's to your point. They just care about, that experience. They don't want to know all the detailed inside stuff that
yeah,
happens is
yeah,
necessary. They just want this clean, easy, simple experience. They don't want to be exposed to the, perhaps the complexity that's within some health systems, or sometimes
yes,
the uncoordinated nature of care.
yeah.
So I get the analogy completely, and think it's a good one. And
Also,
so,
also availability. I mean, in the sense with healthcare, there's so much that goes into taking care of one patient
yeah,
that sometimes the healthcare infrastructure just falls apart. Like, it's not able to be there for every patient for every moment. And the Discharge Plus platform gives this ability for patients to interact with their instructions that they get, and also with Flora, the AI system. And so they can directly ask Flora questions, which really sort of is a liaison sort of between having your care team take care of you, and having someone who you can ask intelligent questions. Because, as you know, with AI, uh, that technology and that intelligence gets better and better with time. So all of these things are very exciting to me, because, you know, if I can have one more person having oversight on my patients, I'm happy as a surgeon. And I don't know if you want to talk about the patient radar feature of Discharge Summary, but Discharge Plus, but this the new feature that they have incorporated into the technology, where as a provider, I can look at the platform, and I can look at, maybe, out of 100 patients that are going through this journey after surgery, I can, at a glimpse of a dashboard, understand which one of those patients is struggling, who's kind of in the red zone, who's in the green zone. And that's incredible for us to be able to then, hone our attention to those specific patients.
yeah, that's what I love about myBenefits AI platform, which includes, you've mentioned, and we'll put a link to the website in the show notes
Yeah,
so
yeah.
people could understand, Discharge Plus, the Radar, Nurse Flora, which is the AI chatbot,
Yes.
how it all works together. But yeah, it's brilliant in terms of, we talked about the patient experience, which so important, and as important is the clinician experience that you're just describing. And with this Radar, yeah, at a glance, because in the past, you'd have to think through each individual patient. And there's no way you'd have the time to go into each record and try to see exactly where they are. But with the Radar, you can see them all, and you can see as they transition. Hopefully, they're always green, meaning they're going down
Yeah,
their treatment of care and their protocols perfectly.
yeah,
But we know that isn't reality. And
yeah,
so times where people might, enter a zone that requires care, but because we're not into each individual record, we can never see it until it turns red, which is
yeah,
a bad experience for both clinician and patient. And with the Radar, you could actually see it on one dashboard, if you will, and manage your
yeah.
patient accordingly. So yeah, it's just that's why it's taken off. I think
Yeah.
by the time we drop this episode or maybe the next one, there'll be some other clients that we can announce. But it's super super exciting where we're headed. And so I really appreciate you speaking to us from the clinician perspective because
Yeah.
Rohan, as I mentioned, that I mean that's more important than the tech perspective. So thank you.
Yeah. No, again, glad to be talking about my benefits. Again, thanks for having me. And I just like to say it's all about checks and balances. Ultimately, you want like safeguards when you go through such an important process of like having surgery. It's not like something that is it's a very unusual thing to go through. And just to know that there are other checks and balances happening in the background all the time, working for you, is important. So, again, thank you for having me, and I'm excited about where this technology goes.
Yeah, and I don't mean to bounce off of what you just said, but yeah, that's where when we talk about AI, I always think about augmented intelligence. So it's not meant to displace anything, but really adding that safeguard, that checks and balances, like
Cool.
another set of eyes, if you will.